I will admit I did not know a lot about Leon Russell before my tour, even though I had already been to his grave on a prior visit to Tulsa. I'll put those pics at the end of this video. It was fascinating to see the studio and hear the musical history. If you learn anything about me, you will know that I love old buildings, especially when they've been repurposed. Leon bought the old church in 1972 and had a vision to make it into a recording studio and offices for his label Shelter Records with then business partner Denny Cordell. And that's just what Leon did, making the church into a music hub for the creation of that Tulsa Sound. I'll have a fun story about that stair later in the video. Stay tuned. Born Claude Russell Bridges on April 2nd, 1942 in Lawton, Oklahoma, Russell's mother discovered her son was a musical prodigy at the tender age of 4. When she heard piano playing from the other room, she went to see who was playing, only to find it was her son playing a hymn he had heard at church. During high school, he took the name Leon from the fake ID he used to get into clubs he was legally too young to perform in, and the rest is musical history.
The building was built in 1915. It was the Grace Methodist Episcopal Church. It was a building built by the people for the people, rather than having a barn raising, they had a church raising. All right, they had all the locals get together. They said, bring whatever lumber you've got, whatever tools you got, and we're going to build a church.
Okay.
Because of that, there's 10 different types of wood in the original structure. It wasn't like they could go to Lowe's back in 1950 and get all the same 2x4s. So
right.
There's all kinds of different lumber in the original building. The building goes through about 4 different denominations over time, beginning, and in the mid-50s, the church that was here decided they wanted to add on to the church. So they wanted to add on to the church, so they raised all this money to do so. And once they raised the money, the city of Tulsa denied their permit.
Huh.
So that's it. Now what are we going to do? We raised all this money, so they decided to alter the appearance of the church with the money that they've raised. All right. So they go to do that. They add this faux stone, this permastone that you see here. As they're doing that, they run out of money. That's why you see some of the exposed red brick
Okay.
up top. That's from the original church built in 1915. So they ran out of money, so they just left it that way. Now the building is on the National Register of Historic Places. So once that happens, no changes can be made, so it's going to stay that way. To me, it kind of gives the building some character.
It does.
All right. Now the statue that you see here, that's Leon Russell, the way that he looked in 1972, the year that he bought the church. All right. It is it's a bronze statue. It's about 300 pounds. It's done by a guy named Jim Franklin out of Perry, Oklahoma. I just started here as a docent back when we first opened in March 22, and I was still in training basically, so I joined a tour in the middle of it upstairs. And this gentleman introduces himself as being from Perry, Oklahoma. And I said, wait a minute. I said, the guy that did the statue downstairs is from Perry. He goes, that's me. So that's why I met Jim Franklin.
Well, how cool.
Now, when Teresa bought the church back in about 6 years ago, her first order of business was to get the building on the National Register of Historic Places. She wanted to help protect and promote Leon Russell's legacy. All the red brick, and then here it is. Once they put up the faux stone, you notice they covered up the stained glass windows here. And that'll be our last stop when we go up to the belfry. A couple things I'd like to point out here is that Teresa has befriended the great-grandson of the original pastor of the church. Together they uncovered the original creed to the church. One of the lines here is, to all who are homeless and want shelter.
Oh, wow.
Shelter Records is just another nice coincidence.
So he didn't name it for that. It
No. He had no clue about that. We'll talk about more about how you got that name later. This is the warranty deed that Leon signed it on March 1st, 1972. By coincidence again, March 1st, 2022 is 50 years to the day later is when this place opened to the public. Here's the original Shelter Records logo. See, it's an upside down Superman S. Well, guess what? He gets sued for that. So they took their inventory, they drew a line through it, then they did hand scribbled S, Saturn ring around the S to where it is today. Leon's goal as a songwriter was to write standards rather than hits. A standard being a song that other people are going to record over and over again.
Right.
He wanted to write songs that Frank Sinatra and Ray Charles would record. So he did that. He had a couple of them. He wrote a song called This Masquerade. George Benson had a huge hit with it in the 70s. He also wrote a song called A Song for You that hundreds of artists have recorded over the years, including Ray Charles, who won a Grammy with his version. Okay?
Wow.
He was also a country music fan. His favorite country artists were Hank Thompson, Hank Snow, Hank Williams. So he combined those names. He came up with his own alter ego, Hank Wilson. And he recorded 4 albums under the moniker Hank Wilson. He was also an artist. That's a self-portrait of him that he did with magic marker back in '84. It's all done with magic marker.
Wow. It's impressive.
Concert with Bangladesh. That was a concert that George Harrison and the Beatles put together back in '71. They helped benefit the country, Bangladesh, the people in the country. He invites Leon Russell to be a part of it. And because of that, Leon, the house band, if you will, had a pretty heavy Oklahoma influence, right? Carl Radle, bass player, played for Clapton, Eric Clapton in the mid-'70s, including Derek and the Dominoes. Jim Keltner is a session drummer who's still with us. He's 80 now, 80, 81. He's played with virtually everybody. It's almost easier to list the people that Keltner has not played with, other than who he's played with. All right, Jesse Davis, a Native American guitar player. A point I like to make is because of Leon's involvement, there's several Oklahomans involved in the house band, if you will, at that concert. And we'll see some more pictures of that later on as well. Story here, Mudcrutch they're from Gainesville, Florida. They're on their way to LA to sell with London Records. On the way there, they stopped here and they're talking with Denny Cordell, who is Leon's business partner. So they talk with him, and Denny convinces the band to sign with Shelter Records rather than London Records when they're here. Right? And they've recorded demo here. Also built a guitar that Eddie Van Halen used for the song Top Jimmy on one of their albums. So he was quite well known. He was quite a guy.
Steve Ripley actually has a very distinctive guitar in that song.
Yeah. Well, Steve Ripley built it. All right. This is one of the pews, one of the original pews. You know, when Leon buys the church, he took out all the pews to turn it into a studio. This is one that's been refurbished. That's from the Ripley estate. Now, out at the studio, I'm not going to mess with the tape. Even the stairwell. The stairs were built using some of the pews as well. So they did not go wasted. Yeah, you can see some of the young kids come through there and like, look at that. Yeah, they had no clue how to play. No clue whatsoever how to play. All right. Leon's third album, it's the first album that he recorded after he bought the church here in Tulsa, was called Carney. All right. There's a song on it called Magic Mirror. All right. Here's the mirror on the album cover. There's the actual mirror. One of our members actually owns that mirror. I was giving a tour one day and I was standing right about here, and he comes walking around the corner with the mirror in his hands. So he's got it loaned here for us to take a look at. Now this exhibit will change, much like the one out there, every few months. You know, come in here and it'll change.
That's awesome.
Rather than Lentic, one of our guests the other day called that a Leon ticket. Kind of like that. Stayed here. He was instrumental in saving baseball in the city of Tulsa as well. Back in the mid-'70s, it was the Tulsa Oilers, and they were going to leave town. Well, he and a guy named A. Ray Smith bought a team in New Orleans and moved into Tulsa in '77.
Leon went on to record 33 albums and more than 430 songs. His A Song for You, released in 1970, has been recorded by more than 100 artists, including Amy Winehouse, Michael Bublé, The Carpenters, Willie Nelson, Whitney Houston, and Ray Charles, who won a Grammy with his version in 1994. On Leon's first solo album, Eric Clapton, Ringo Starr, and George Harrison played backup, among countless other notable artists. In 1973, Billboard named Russell the top concert attraction in the world. In 2011, Leon was inducted into both the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Leon was inducted into the Oklahoma Hall of Fame in the class of 2022. Clean cut Willie Nelson. Legend has it that Leon is the one who encouraged Willie to grow his hair out. I don't doubt that one bit. I feel like Willie Nelson has looked this exact same my whole entire life. Now to see where the magic happens.
The pulpit, we're going to go right here. Corner wall, back up behind us. Here he is preaching to this flock, right here. Right. Teresa has kept the original baptistry that we used for baptisms. It's still here on the floor. She kept that and she did a renovation. Cool. Alright, so Leon buys the church, takes all the pews out, builds it into a world-class studio for 1972. Alright? Everything in here is, none of it is original. Everything is brand new now. We talked about this 50 years ago. But Leon buys a place. He's got his buddies we talked about. There's not a whole lot of recording that we can watch. There's some of the Gap Band from that 74 that's here. But if you can just imagine Leon on piano, Clapton, Harrison, Dylan, just sitting around, just jamming, just playing around. It would have been something that would fly on the wall when those guys were here 50 years ago. They recorded 30 Woody Guthrie songs, okay? And they were very, very secret. The staff wouldn't even tell us who was here, right? They wanted to, and in case anybody got up here, snuck through, this was all covered with like paper. You couldn't see, they didn't, very secret. Well, they were supposed to be here for 2 weeks. Well, by the third week, I came in to volunteer one morning, and there was a van parked down front. That Dropkick Murphys all on the side. So, well, I guess the secret's out. When the church was built, there were 10 different types of wood in the original structure, okay? When Leon does his renovation, he adds Oklahoma cedar to the mix, all right? Teresa, during her renovation, took some of that Oklahoma cedar and had this table built, all right? And the albums that you see are all albums that were big in 1972, the year that Leon bought the church. He's involved in 2 of them, Carney and a concert for Bangladesh.
There is one place on the tour that you are not allowed to take pictures or video, and that is the Belfry, or former church bell tower. I'm not sure why there are no photos or video allowed, but now I'm trying to recall as much as I can by memory, and I've slept since the tour. You climb to the top of the stairs. There's an old music player, either a radio or turntable at the top of the stairs. There's a couch, and there are beautiful stained glass windows. The first one is, of course, of Leon Russell. There's one of George Harrison, Willie Nelson, and Bob Dylan. 2 of the windows are blank, and the artist is working on them. One of them is going to contain Tom Petty, and I can't recall about the second blank one. Who will it contain? If you're with the church studios or if you've been on the tour, let me know who I'm forgetting in the comment section. No elevator or ramp at the church. All the equipment has to be maneuvered up the outside stairs to get to the former sanctuary. The rumor is that George Harrison and Leon Russell was attempting to push a piano up the stairs and it slipped, taking out a chunk of the cement stairs. That would have been some sight watching 2 music icons trying to get the piano into the church. Hopefully they had other people helping them as well. This is not my first music studio tour. A few years ago, I was able to tour a famed recording studio in Muscle Shoals, Alabama, also a legendary recording studio. So if you love music, I think you will enjoy visiting Church Studio. If you are a musician, you can rent the space to record your own music. If you're not a musician like me, you can reserve the location for other special events and private parties. Follow Church Studios on their social media to keep up to date on special intimate concert performances hosted on site. I told one of my music friends about their event called Tunes at Noon, where musicians play live at the site, and he is checking into it. Unfortunately, they are already booked until sometime in 2025. If my friend gets to play there next year, I will have to go back and film it for a follow-up video. If these walls could talk, they would be singing. Can you imagine all the late night jam sessions that happened here? It's wild to think about. While you're in Tulsa, you can pay your respects at Leon's grave in Memorial Park Cemetery. It's a very nice memorial tribute, and his marker is, of course, a piano. Roy Clark is buried there, musician Bob Wills from the Texas Playboys, and even funny man from the 80s and 90s, comedian Sam Kinison. I have a funny story. When I was at the cemetery back in 2020, I was looking at Sam Kinison's grave when I hear a man's voice from several rows over yell, "You should go to Hollywood." Luckily, I figured out pretty quickly what he was talking about. Hollywood Forever Cemetery in Los Angeles, California, is where most of the famous actors and actresses are buried. I yelled back, "Thank you." Anyway, it was amusing to hear a random voice out of nowhere telling me to go to Hollywood. I hope you enjoyed this tour around the church studios. Until next time, bye for now.